upgrading my plant grow light shelves, and after over a decade of seed starting, I have made a lot of mistakes. So today I'm gonna show you the setup, the upgrades, and all the stuff I wish I knew starting out. Hi guys, I'm April from Resprout. Like and subscribe for more garden tips and tutorials for my suburban front yard garden where I help you garden like a boss. 99% of the time, I use my grow light shelves for seed starting vegetables. That's mainly tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, melon, and all the stuff that eventually gets transplanted out into the garden. I plan to branch out soon to herbs and leafy greens, so watch out for videos on those too. I'm especially excited to have those in the winter. Microgreens too, since they grow super fast. Grow light shelves and stands are also a great option for houseplants if the inside of your house is more like a cave than a greenhouse, like mine is. There are a ton of different shelving options out there, including plastic, wood, and metal, but personally, I use wire metal shelving. I have 2 adjustable metal shelves that I got off Amazon for about $100 each. They're 4 feet wide and almost 7 feet tall. I'll leave a link down below for these shelves and any other supplies I talk about today. You definitely do not need adjustable shelves as long as you have a way to move your lights up and down. But I say you can't go wrong with both. Whatever shelf you choose, you'll want some kind of system for hanging lights like hooks, chains, bars, or something similar. And FYI, you think your floors are level until you start pouring water all over the place. So make sure you have a way to level your shelves, even if it's just adding a coin under a corner. Otherwise, water is going to run to one side of the tray and your plants are all going to get watered differently. As far as spacing between the shelves, that's going to depend on what you're growing and how strong your lights are. Microgreens and leafy greens usually stay pretty compact so you can keep shelves closer together. Houseplants and larger vegetable transplants need a lot more vertical room. One mistake I made starting out was only thinking about the seedling height and not about the mature transplant height. Tomato plants especially get tall way faster than you think, and suddenly they're growing up into the lights like they're trying to escape the shelf. That's why one of the upgrades I'm making is actually removing one of the shelves. That's going to give me more vertical space between each level for those taller plants. Before I get into my new setup, let me tell you what was wrong with my setup before. I made 3 mistakes here. Mistake number 1, the intensity was not high enough. How did I know? All of my seedlings were horribly leggy. Light intensity for plants is measured in something called photosynthetic photon flux density. We're just gonna say PPFD for short. Now, according to the University of Iowa, given 14 hours of light a day, germinating seedlings need 120 to 320 ppfd. Leafy greens and basil need 240 to 320, and tomatoes and other fruiting vegetables need about 360 to 595. For some comparison, on a sunny day, direct sun will be about 2500 ppfd, and full shade will be about 350. There are professional PPFD meters on the market, but they can be as much as $700. Good news is you can actually use a phone app to measure the PPFD of the lights that you have. So I downloaded this awesome one called Phototone. There is a free version, but you're gonna wanna spring for the paid version so that you can get access to the LED, sunlight, and the fluorescent light options. You'll need to apply either a store-bought light diffuser or simply a piece of printer paper to the front camera on your phone. What I found out was shocking, and I really wish I had done this before. The first set of lights I ever bought were these fluorescent tube shop lights. Super affordable, but they clocked in at no more than 25 ppfd. These weren't good enough for any growing stage. The LED shop lights that I upgraded to several years later came in between 100 and 150 ppfd. So those only worked for just the bottom range of germinating. Last year, I finally decided to upgrade to some serious lights. To be fair, I didn't know anything about PPFD when I bought them. So I made my second mistake, which is going out and buying the most intense, most high-powered, brightest lights I could find. Now, don't get me wrong, these lights are freaking amazing. But depending on the distance to the meter, they clocked in at 700 to 1100 PPFD. And that was on the 25% setting. At 100%, they were 2700 to 4500 PPFD. This was basically like buying a NASA space shuttle to get to my neighbor's house. My vegetable seedlings were getting light stressed, crispy around the edges with stunted growth. Not good. As you can see from the PPFD meter, the intensity is a function of distance. So my third mistake was not getting the distance between my seedlings and the light correct. With the intense lights, I made the intensity even worse by putting them too close. And with the low PPFD lights that I started with, the mistake I made was putting them too far away, making them even leggier. So what did I do to finally fix this situation? I am so happy to introduce to you VivoSun, the answer to all of my light problems and the sponsor of this video. I upgraded to their LumaLight 200 watt full spectrum LED grow lights. They're designed to cover a 2 foot by 4 foot space, which is about the size of my shelves. First off, these lights were super easy to install. They came with hangers and I used metal S-hooks to attach them to my wire shelves. This is one of the reasons why I love using wire shelves so much. And I used twist ties to organize the wires leading up to the electrical outlets. The PPFD on the 200 watt Luma lights is 751 at a 12-inch distance. Now, they may still sound like a little bit too much for vegetable seedlings, but they do come with a 25, 50, 75, and 100% intensity knob. So that gives me access to 187 PPFD at 25%, which is perfect for germination. And also 375 at 50%, which is good for leafy greens and basil. And the 75% level gives me 563 PPFD, which is great for tomatoes and other fruiting vegetables. And if I really need to, I can adjust the PPFD by moving the plants further away from the lights. At 100% intensity, 18 inches away gives me an average of 562 PPFD, and 24 inches away gives me 457 PPFD. This is the light I should have gotten from the very beginning. This would have prevented my leggy seedlings with the low intensity lights and the crispy burnt seedlings with the high intensity lights. So maybe I'm driving a Lamborghini to my neighbor's house now. A little bit of a show off, but it does the job very well. For now, I'm just manually dimming these, but if you want more automation, you can link up to 20 Luma lights to a VivoSun Grow Hub controller and control them all from the VivoSun app. If you're interested in getting some of these awesome lights, visit the link below. For a limited time, they'll be 10% off. You can't go wrong. Honestly, these lights have solved a problem I've been fighting for years. Now that we have the right lights, let's talk about how long we're leaving them on. If you're growing vegetable seedlings, herbs, or leafy greens, you'll want to run your lights 12 to 16 hours per day. If you run it more, you could run into the same issue I did, which is light stress on my plants. You can tell that you're getting light stress if your leaves are getting bleached out, turning yellow or crispy, but it's only isolated in the area where the lights are directed. Tomatoes that have been light stressed will actually turn a dark bronze color and just stop growing. I was relying on my memory to turn the lights on and off, which was my mistake. Which leads me to the next problem, forgetting to turn them on at all. For real, sometimes I went 2 days straight without turning these lights on. So the solution to both of these problems is to have a timer. There's a lot of options like smart Wi-Fi enabled timers, and then you got the old manual ones like we used to have as kids for our Christmas trees. See, we gotta give credit to our parents for that one. One of the first mistakes I made when I started seed starting is not knowing about germination temperatures. I put all this work into starting my seeds, blissfully ignorant of why my seeds were not germinating in my 60-degree basement. Meanwhile, depending on the seed, ideal temperatures can range anywhere between 45 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Huge range, super frustrating, obviously. After that, I made a handy chart for myself, which you guys can download on our website if you'd like. Whenever I start seeds, I always check this chart to figure out which seeds need the warmer and which ones need the cooler temperatures. After that, you'll need to find a way to measure the temperature accurately. You can use a traditional mercury thermometer, a digital one, or you can do what I did. I bought my hubs one of these fancy thermometer guns for his pizza oven. He is most assuredly not providing Friday night pizza, as promised, so I stole it back. Although it won't give you a read of the internal soil temperature, you still get the surface soil temp, which is way more accurate than the ambient temperature you'd get from a regular thermometer. Once you know what temperature you need to have your seedlings at and what temperature you actually have, you can avoid my two other mistakes. Too hot and too cold, the Goldilocks problem. If your seedlings are too cold, you can add a space heater or a heat mat. The most typical size for a heat mat is actually the size of a 10-20 tray, but they come in a variety of sizes. VivoSun even makes one that can cover the entire shelf. I've had my eye on that one. Keep in mind that heat mats do add more electrical load and cable management complexity. Not to mention they aren't cheap. So often, depending on where you have your shelves, raising the ambient room temperature might be a better option than using heat mats. On the other hand, if your seedlings are too hot, ventilation is the best option. There are 3 reasons you might want ventilation in your shelf setup. First, heat dissipation. So if you're trying to cool off your seedlings. Number 2, increasing airflow is also a really great way to reduce disease, especially damping off, which affects a lot of indoor seedlings. And the 3rd reason, hardening off. One of the main mistakes I made when I first started seed starting is not hardening off my plants well enough before planting. Hardening off means basically getting your plants ready to deal with the outside world from their pampered life indoors. So that includes real sunlight, real wind, rain falling on their leaves, bugs, everything that goes along with real outdoor life. A fan can help plants get used to wind and actually makes their stems sturdier. I had a really hard lesson about hardening off when I first started gardening. I had brought all my young seedlings outside for the first time and planted them all in one day under the hot, broiling sun. They all immediately wilted and quite a few of them died, so this is no joking matter. For my setup, I used 2 fans, an oscillating fan and a box fan aimed at both of my seed starting racks. There are some growing rack specific clip-on fans on the market too. Once you have everything installed, the next step is hooking it up to the juice. Big caveat here, I am not an electrician, so I'm not going to offer specific advice here. Everybody's situation is going to be different based on your house, your shelves, and how many heat mats, fans, and grow lights you got going on. What I will say is basic electrical safety things here. These are the types of tips that are a little obscure, but can start causing trouble when you're putting together a complex system like a plant grow light shelf. 1, make sure you read the box and the instructions that came with your grow lights. LED grow lights like the VivoSun Lumilight are very energy efficient, but traditional grow lights or other high intensity discharge HID lighting can really suck up a lot of juice. Make sure you know how much total load you're putting on one breaker in your house. And remember, that includes everything else already running on that breaker, like appliances. And go check that breaker. Is it a 15 amp or a 20 amp? If your lights are linkable, make sure you know how many can safely be linked together. Keep the surge protectors and extension cords to a minimum. If you do have to use them, make sure they're heavy duty and they're rated for the type and number of grow lights that you have. Extension cords should be as short as possible. And yes, they do make 2 and 3 foot extension cords. Don't coil up your extension cords or enclose the extension cords or surge protectors in any way. Both of those will cause heat. Obviously, keep water away from outlets, surge protectors, and extension cords as much as possible. Keep your cords up off the floor to avoid accidental spills. I have mine in open top trays at the top of my shelves. And bonus points if your outlet is GFCI rated. When you do water your plants, avoid getting your grow lights wet too. Good news though, high quality grow lights like the ones I have from VivoSun here are IPF 65 waterproof rated, so that ups the safety factor. If you have an older house like I do, where the light switches actually turn on the outlets and you plan on manually turning on your lights, totally use that to your advantage. If you're connecting your lights to an outlet like that and you don't want to use that switch, make sure you put one of those handy covers over the switch so someone else in your household doesn't accidentally turn your lights on or off. And seriously guys, if you get a whiff that there's anything wrong with your setup, if you are getting zapped, if the extension cords are turning colors, if the breaker is going, if things are getting hot, that is a sign that there is a problem. Please call an electrician. They are more than happy to help with your setup. It is probably going to be the funnest job they have all day. Once you have your shelf set up, it's time to load it up with all your plants. I have some separate videos about seed starting trays, and I've gotten a lot of questions about closed bottom trays versus perforated. I use closed bottom for a couple of reasons. First, going back to the whole don't get water on your electrical items, that's a big thing. A closed bottom tray is going to contain the water. Secondly, small seedlings prefer minimal disturbance. So yes, that includes showering them with water from above. So the way that I water my seedlings is I use a watering can and I bottom water, which is exactly what it sounds like, putting water in the bottom of the tray. This keeps water from spraying everywhere and disturbing the seeds. The soil soaks it up from the bottom. Depending on how big the seedlings are, how warm your setup is, and how much soil is in each container, you'll want to water once every 1 to 4 days. So there you go guys, that's a tour of my grow light shelves. If you'd like information specifically on seed starting like soil, fertilizer, how to make soil blocks, specific seeds, trays, or garden planting, check out our seed starting playlist, which I will link below. I hope this video helped you out. Remember to sign up for my email newsletter for more garden resources. And keep gardening like a boss, and I'll see you guys soon.